Welcome to another Generation One podcast. I am here with amazing people in person and online. You're going to see them popping up right now. Yes, and we are here today to talk about the pressure of the grind. I know we are very used to, in our culture, hearing you got to grind, you got to hustle, you got to go get it, get the bag, you got to make something happen. And I want to know how that's kind of affected you and what's your experience been with the grind culture.
All right, Stan, since you're looking at me like that, bro, I'm going to just go ahead and go.
It's for anybody.
So I've watched my father, work, for a majority of my life, right? And he gets up early, comes home late sometimes, and I, in tune, took that and made that my own thing. And not only that, I watched, the music videos growing up, and I wanted the things that they had, like the cars, the jewelry, the money. I'm saying, a lot of women at one point, but I noticed that they were basically in a space where they were working so much that now, looking back at it from this vantage point, they're like, their health is declining fast, and the grind that they put in was unhealthy because it was like an imbalance of work, but no rest, no getting refilled, no getting refueled, you know what I'm saying? Because if you don't have a balance, it's going to hurt you, it's going to affect you in a negative way, So that's been my experience. I've experienced health issues. I've experienced car accidents. A lot of things have come from me working so hard that I've missed opportunities to rest. That's been mine.
Yeah. I was going to say, I totally relate to you with the dad thing. Our dad worked at UPS for over 30 years, and every single morning at the same time he'd wake up, he'd go to work, and with UPS, especially around the holidays, it's so crazy. And so he would work over 12 hours and then come home, go to sleep, wake up, do the same thing. And he did it every single day. And I think seeing him do that almost instilled a grind worth ethic in my own life. And so when I moved to LA, I was like, I kind of have to do what my dad does, is I have to get up and have to grind from to the morning to the night. And if I don't, then I'm not being productive. It's a part of me is I could be doing more. And so I feel you on that, because we grew up seeing our dad do that every single day. And so I almost am harder on myself and push myself to almost an unhealthy place where it's I need to grind. I need to work. And if I don't work or meet these expectations, then I'm not good enough.
Yeah, you definitely said that better than I did. I'm taking your answer for sure.
That's cool. Same here with the dad thing. My dad was the same exact way. He'd be up super early in the morning, out of the house, gone all day, working until the evening. And that was something that I was able to see just my whole entire childhood growing up, and the way that he would have his day structured. And that was something that really non-verbally he kind of just instilled into me. But I feel like there's this narrative that is sold to everyone, but especially those who have a dream or who have a big vision or just want to be okay financially, whatever the case. There's a narrative that says, that almost puts us in some way we're behind and we're working from this other place. And I've noticed there's been times in my life where my desire to be productive, as you said, is not even stemming from the health of me wanting to see this dream come or this vision come or the fruit of whatever it is I'm working on, but it's more so coming from the fear of me not doing it and the fear of me not working. Productivity has been something that I've had a wrestling relationship with in my life, where I've struggled in times to rest well and to be okay not being productive, to be okay not knowing that I'm, whether if it's making content, making the next video, or if it's music, doing the next song, and always having something. That was my experience for a while. I think that it's shifted now a little bit, where I'm at a spot where my goal is to be as intentional as possible in in working hard and also resting hard. But it's so easy for those lines to get blurred sometimes, especially in college, and classes with midterms and papers don't make it any easier, where you have a lot of students that end up pulling all-nighters. A lot of, like, you know how much one all-nighter will just like wreck your entire system and balance.
Yes.
There's students that will just do this religiously just for that one assignment, and it creates this cycle where you're not really working as hard as you could work because you're too depleted to work as good as you could work, and then you're not resting as good as you could rest, because by the time you rest, you're like, I should be working more. And you're working, you're like, but I'm tired, I need rest. And as opposed to that, I mean, at this point, I'm usually sleep by like 10, 9:30, sometimes earlier. But yeah, my goal is to try to be as intentional as possible with taking the rest that I need, so that I'm able to do that. It still gets tough, though. It still gets tricky in some moments to lay things down, to turn the phone off, to delete socials, delete everything, and say I'm going to take this time and just be and just rest. But yeah, that's been a little bit about it.
Yeah.
The experience so far.
It sounds like we've all seen good examples of like hard work as well in our life, and so I want to kind of talk about, and I want to loop in Zay and Carmen on like how do we separate what's like a constant grind and what's just like hard work, because a lot of our parents, that what they would say is they had to do what they had to do. They had to raise the family, they had to make things happen, and sometimes in their minds and their hearts, you don't have a choice. Rent has to get paid, you have kids looking at you who need to be fed, they need clothes, and so they don't see it as an unhealthy way of grinding and neglecting themselves or their health or anything. They see it as they're making something happen. And I think we're just a couple generations away of there's not like the craziest variety of jobs to work. It's like you do these couple things, you make some money, you provide for your family. And so how do we separate what is a grind and what is just working hard?
Sheesh.
It's funny that you say that, and hopefully y'all can hear me, but like I'm trying to like unpack what everyone said, but speaking more so like with just this generation, we don't like, we're the biggest, Gen Z is like the biggest generation to just quit a job off the strength of, I don't like it here. That's like not heard of in our parents' generation. It's just like all, like I hear Jalen, your dad worked at UPS for 30 years. People was working at my dad worked at the Washington Post for 40 years. And I would talk to him all the time, and I'm like, there's no way I would be sitting. I literally just couldn't do it. But I think to your point, for our parents, it was, my dad had kids, my mom had kids, they had to provide. But for us, I think some of our parents gave us the opportunity to like live a dream where our work didn't feel like work. And so like, I know I'm blessed to have like jobs that don't feel like I'm grinding, but it doesn't feel like, wow, I have to clock in because I have to pay this bill. I'm doing it because I love that. And I'm grateful that my parents did work the 2-3 jobs and the all-nighters and the 12-hour shifts, so I could explore like what I wanted to do. But to your point, like, how do you differentiate hard work from grinding? I think everyone to some degree is a hard worker. I think that's just like, if you're diligent enough, like you do the work. I think when it comes to like grinding, there's a purpose behind it. Like, I'm doing this because I want X outcome. Like I'm working this, I'm going to do this 12-hour project because I want this song released, or I'm doing this 12-hour project because I know that like I'm going to get this brand deal, or et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I would say is like the difference. But what I love about our generation is that we're not afraid to like take risks. And I think that's a part of the reason is the generation before us like put their head down and did the work. So this generation could, explore and expand and find our own jobs outside of like 9-to-5s in corporate America.
No, but I totally agree. I think when we talk about the pressure of grinding, I don't think that you should try to work or grind out of a place of pressure, because like for me, I used to, see a lot of my friends in the music industry, my age, going crazy, releasing projects, releasing songs all the time. And so that will push me to the place where I'm like, okay, I have to do this for myself at the same time. But that's unhealthy because, my process is going to look different than everybody else's. So for me, I would go through seasons where I would try to write, mix and master a song a day. and it was terrible for my mental health. But I had that pressure. I wanted to, have the same outcomes as the people that were around me. But it wasn't until I stopped and actually okay, hold on. Y'all gonna have to bear with me because my thoughts are everywhere right now. But having that pressure or having that grind culture is so focused on doing instead of being. And so I would be doing all of these things, trying to get all these outcomes, not realizing that becoming and being was the way that I was going to get those outcomes regardless. So, yeah, I feel like grinding out of pressure kind of just makes everything frantic and makes everything out of order and imbalanced. Whereas if you take the pressure off and just have authentic hard work ethic, all that stuff, you can get those outcomes without having the consequences of what a pressured product produces. What a pressure, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Sorry, there was one other thing I want to say about rest that I learned after working in like several different offices. Like, this is gonna sound real morbid, y'all, but God sends you home tomorrow, your seat is going to be filled the following week. The sooner I realized that, the more I started prioritizing my rest. If you're not going to prioritize your rest, no one's going to do it for you. And God forbid something happens to you. Unfortunately, the world, not God, not, spiritual, but the world finds you replaceable. And so the sooner you realize that, like, that mentality, you have to put yourself first, because the world is not. It's not going to put you first. They want you to continue to work. They want you to think that, like, what you're doing is invaluable, but they want you to think that, like, oh, like, we need you. But at the end of the day, if something were to happen, your seat, your position is going to be filled the next day. So I think that's another reason why Gen Z is creating out like revenues of income for themselves and creating paths for themselves, because a lot of people are realizing, like, these corporations or these big jobs, like, you're a number. Sorry if that's a little morbid, but that's what I've been figuring out as I'm like working.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's
It's
great.
true.
I think when I heard Zay speaking, it reminded me of myself in a season where the two words that would pop up, because I would go through something similar, you know what I'm saying? And the two words that will pop up are comparison and validation, right? I would compare myself to these people that are putting out these songs from whatever place and season they're in, right? And then I would in tune do the same thing because I was trying to do something that they're doing, but I was also seeking validation, because, hey, they're doing this, I'm doing this too. So I want you to recognize and see all the things that I'm doing because I need that in order to create, right? That was the unhealthy part of the grind, you know what I'm saying? So had I, like Zay was saying, taking the pressure off of myself or allow God to come in and like use me in whatever way he wanted me to, whether it was one song a month or one song a year or don't put out nothing this year, right? I was looking for that validation through the music and the projects I was putting out. So, yeah.
100%. I was picking up on that, like, and what Zay was saying. I think that it's really important to prioritize process over production.
Yes.
And what production looks like is how many numbers by any means necessary, like how much I can pump out. And if that's in music, it's how many songs I could get done. There was a season where I entirely spent same as you, Zay, like I got to get a song done a day, and if not more. How many sessions? How much can I possibly fill my schedule? Most of the songs are trash, like realistically, because they're not even coming from the right place, and it's coming from me just trying to catch up to something that I don't even need to be chasing. Whereas as process understands like what my needs are in that exact moment, it understands where the Holy Spirit is leading me, if that's to do a song on this day or to do a song on not do a song. This season that I'm in now, I write the least I've ever written in my life in terms of the time that I have for it, yet when I do, in my humble opinion, I feel like I don't miss, because there's so much more that I'm bringing to it when I'm doing it, that the result of it is impactful, and I'm not there just to simply get a verse and a hook done. But that process over production has been something that's really helped me, and in that thought where there's in the moments where I'm inclined to want to chase the numbers and do what the world says is necessary for success, and the things that you got to do to create a platform and whatever the case is, and really get out of that and steer away from that, and know that, like you said, where instead of comparing myself, I've had that in a season where I'm looking at everybody else's numbers and things that they're doing on their pages, and it's making me want to do that stuff. And it's coming from comparison, as opposed to a place of fullness where I understand what God has spoken about me. And really, when I do understand that, I'm going to be more inclined to, first of all, spend time with God, and spend time working on the stuff about me that is going to precede everything that God has for me. And it's that paradigm shift that I think has helped me the most in this bout.
I love that process and production. I think what Zay said is so wise about being and becoming, and things coming from that place. And it goes with what you just said as well. The things that God has given us to do, these dreams, these goals, these visions, he wants you to work hard for them. Absolutely. Because he can't do anything if you're lazy and if you're not doing anything. But the grind doesn't go all into your hands. You need to be the person that you're supposed to be. So you got to spend time with him. You got to become the person that you're supposed to be to release those things and to build those things he's given you. But if you're grinding, it's almost like it comes from fear, or it comes from comparison. It comes from this anxiety that if you don't do certain things, it's not going to happen. But it just makes me think about like Psalm 1:1 through 3. It just talks about, you shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of living water, whose leaf will not wither, who brings forth its fruit in every season, and whatever they do shall prosper. And I think us spending time with him, you're like a tree. The fruit is coming every single season. Every time you need a song, it's gonna just come, because you're planted by the rivers of living water. You're with God, you're walking with him, and so whatever you're supposed to do, whatever you're called to, it's just gonna come. And I think that's really wise. Is we need to just be and become, and then you need to work hard for sure. Because I also got that mixed up as well, is when you're waiting on God's timing and you're waiting on God to do certain things in your life, I almost fell into like some sort of a stagnancy. I wouldn't even call it laziness, but I was getting stagnant because I didn't know what I should be doing versus what God should be doing. But you have to give him something to work with. You gotta wake up every day and be available. You have to be directable, so you have to be in motion in some way. So you got to show up, pen and pad every day and say, God, what do we do today? Because you did give me these plans and these dreams. You did give me this vision, and I'm not going to run at it without you. And I see a lot of people that I know, friends, family, who get these things from God, and then they take that and say, okay, God gave me this, and then they run off without him. It's like, no, with God, you don't have to do that, because God will take you step by step, and he'll make it happen. So
I mean, it's the reason why the Bible says faith without works. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We don't go around saying, man, I'm a faith hard today.
Faith so hard.
Nike don't say just faith it.
No.
All of these things say you have to take an action. You feel what I'm saying? Like, you have to take an action. There is an action that is required in order for something to come.
Yes.
You feel what I'm saying? So if you don't have the works without the faith, you can faith all you want to.
Oh yeah.
You can faith all you want to on the couch. But if you don't get off the couch if you don't jump off the porch and take some work and faith and put them together, there's no product.
I'm telling you. I mean, I see that so much. I see it so much. We have all these. God told me I'm going to do this. God told me I'm going to do that. And next thing you know, you're a grandpa. You're fizzling out saying, God told me I'm going to do this. God told me. He would love to do that, but you got to show up. You got to work too. So you have to work hard, but there's also rest in walking with him. Because the real load is on his shoulders. He takes that load and he walks with us. But you have to do something. So I think to segue a little bit, how do you prioritize rest? Working hard, going after these things, not being in this anxious cycle of grinding like you're going to miss something. But how do you prioritize rest in that way? Because it's sometimes tough for me. It's tough for me to rest. I'll get caught up in the habits now, or the patterns of working hard, and life is different now, different responsibilities, rent is different now, things are different. And I still have my Sabbath and I still have my times to rest, but sometimes rest is a little difficult because it's hard to shut your mind off. So how do you trust God with that rest time?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I do, and this is on a daily basis, if not multiple times a day. Sometimes it's on a task by task basis, but on a daily basis, when I come home for the day, I literally talk to myself and I say, I'm like, Stan, hey, and I say, thank you for showing up today. Thank you for all that you gave. I appreciate you. I love you. And I have that moment that allows me to disengage with the day at the point that I'm transitioning. And something about me being intentional and saying that out loud helps my mind to switch off of all the things it wants to continue to be concerned about. And sometimes I got to go back to that. But the biggest thing to me is going to be sensitivity in those moments of discerning what I need and what separates the hard work from just grinding. Because I agree with everything you guys said. There's a reason that we have to work hard and that we have to be disciplined and have a structure in our life that is there for the greatness that we want to see. I think it's in our sensitivity to know what we need and when we need it. For me, that's about on a daily basis. If I'm usually up around 5 in the morning and my day goes until maybe I'm in class until around 5 p.m. At the point that I come home from class, it's a wrap for me. I'm only up for like 3 more hours of the day before I'm really winding down. So when I come home from that, that's it. That is just something that I've grown to learn of through this semester of what I need to be able to function healthily and do this thing the best that I can. But if it was one word, I would say sensitivity.
That's great. Zay and Carmen.
I don't know if Zay had anything. I was really resonating with what you said, Stan. I think something that I'm learning is separating my worth to my work. Like, what I produce isn't a reflection of who I am. And so, like, I know especially artists, right? Like, they get really particular about their work, and like, if they feel like if their work is being critiqued, it's themselves. Or like, I feel like if this post doesn't do well, like, I'm not doing well. So for me, prioritizing rest is separating that, like, my work is not my worth. Although, like, yes, if something goes well and I did it, that's great. But if it doesn't, that doesn't mean that I'm worth any less. Like, if you don't get the award, it doesn't mean you're worth any less. If you don't get the recognition, it doesn't mean you're not worth the recognition. And so I think the moment people separate themselves from the work that they're producing, it's a whole nother mind shift. And like I said before, like, resting, only you can prioritize that, because no one else is going to do it. No one's going to say, yeah, your boss is not going to say, take a break. No, they love that you're working. They want you to work. I mean, there's some bosses that are nice, but I'm just saying, yeah, you definitely have to prioritize for yourself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Resting for me is refilling. And so you cannot continue to pour out, the way that most strive to, working hard, getting things done, and expect to be able to do that forever. So for me, resting is like taking the time to just get filled back up. A car needs gas. Like, it's very necessary. And so I feel like sometimes not being able to stop just kind of means that you're not really on the right track. So you got to give yourself the permission to just refill.
That is so good. Yeah. You have to give yourself permission to refill. Yeah.
I think for me, my whole, I would even say life, my whole life changed when I found out about Sabbath, because I didn't realize that was a thing that was allowed. Because I thought that, like, when you take breaks and when you rest, like, you're being lazy. And so I feel like once I found out about Sabbath and that it's biblical and that God wants me to rest and rest with him, it changed my life, because it was like, I'm stubborn. So I was already like, I'm not gonna rest, because in that time of resting, I could be doing work. But the fact that God's like, no, I need you to come and sit next to me and talk to me and connect with me, I think it changed my life in the way I view work. I think I'm an introvert as well. And so I refuel by myself. I'm like, I just need to sit in a room with silence and nobody talk to me. And so I feel like as I've even gotten older, and as I've now, like, with LA, the grind is all the time. But I feel like God's even reminding me, like, just to sit with him. He's like refueling me. And so those moments when it's like, I feel like I've run out of words. I've run out of words for the day. I'm done talking. I feel like God is like, well, that's perfect because it's biblical to sit with me and to be recharged. And so I think it's changed my whole view and my whole mindset. I'm like, this is allowed. This is okay. And giving myself grace to just sit and to just be, I think has changed my whole mindset on everything. And also to do it right. Because I feel like sometimes with rest,
Yes.
I can rest, but then in my rest, I think of all the things I haven't been able to do because I've been working.
Exactly.
And so like, I'm like, oh God, I'm going to Sabbath. It's going to be great. And then it's like, I'll end up doing stuff
busy.
all day, or I'll fill my schedule. And then it's like, I didn't actually rest. I didn't actually spend time with God. And I know when it happens because the next day after my Sabbath, or even afternoon after my Sabbath, I'm like empty again. I'm like, I feel like I didn't even rest. So it's like Sabbath, it's like, it's okay. I don't know who said it, but it said, it was God doesn't rest so you can. Like God is just always there. He's taking care of everything. So you don't have to do anything. You can rest. And so, yeah, that's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. That's definitely how.
You said something about laziness that that really resonated with me, because I don't know if y'all have felt this way, but there's been a lot of times where I feel like I'll have this fear of being lazy based on the type of people that I look up to. Like I look up to people that work really hard. The role models that I have are people that I know, like they're in the gym, they're doing this, they're blah, blah, blah. And so that'll start trying to slip in there when you know you're taking the time you need, when you know that it's rest, but there's that little bit of fear of like, is this lazy of me to do? That's something that will still happen to me sometimes, even though I know in my right mind and spiritually how I'm supposed to be moving. And that's something that I think a lot about that. Do y'all deal with that as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think rest was hard for me because I would, as I've said on previous podcasts, I would work and then come home and work on music, right? I think I had to now be more intentional because I'm not working in the same aspect I was, because I would come home and work and do music, and now it's like I gotta like take my hands off of the thing that I do. Like Carmen was saying, my work is not my worth, but I'm also more than what I was called to do. You get what I'm saying? I'm more than like the gift. I mean to say I'm more than the gift that God has given me. I have more like facets. So the thing that I do the rest is just put everything down. I don't look at nothing. Like I know people be like, oh man, you off today, let's talk. No, I don't want to talk on my off day because that means I'm using energy. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to use no extra energy that I don't need to.
Yeah.
You know?
For
And
real.
that fear of being lazy when I want to not use energy creeps in.
Yeah.
know? So-
What do you do when that happens?
I have to speak to myself.
Yeah.
Like you do. You know, I have
Yeah.
to call on the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
You know, because it's not something that I could defeat by myself.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm human, and my human nature is to work, grind. But I gotta say, you know what, Rick, you need rest. And I know I'm fighting that because I'll be on the couch. Yeah, man, I know I'm about to do this and do that, and I'll knock out. I remember, quick story. I remember in the pandemic, I had a whole list of things that I would do because I had so much time. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna rest, but I'm gonna do this. I had my whole days lined up. I remember I woke up one day, I put the list on top of something. I woke up one day and I saw, it was no window open, no AC on. I saw the paper blow. It blew off of the table and went by the trash can. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to not do any of that, you know, because I really felt like I had everything listed out that I needed to do. But the fact that I literally saw this piece of paper that I took so much time, to write out, blow away like it did, I was like, all right, maybe that's not it. Yeah. And I was also in the season of like making music, and it was trash. It was garbage, hot garbage. So,
what I've learned is you have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to create time and space to rest, to be refueled, and then to do what you are called to. I thought I was being lazy with the way I was pursuing my goals and dreams and the things God's telling me to do. But really, I was just tired because all throughout the week I was working a job for somebody else, and I'm helping build their vision, and I'm helping build what they're doing. And so I didn't have any time for, when I got home, the energy I had for myself, it was spent. Like I was tired. So then I would go to sleep, wake up, and then try and do a work before I went in again. But really, I just needed to advocate for myself, and I cut my work hours down. I said maybe I work 3 or 4 days rather than 5 or 6, because then I can have more time for myself and what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. I know my brother's in a similar spot where he has a full-time job and he's working, and then now it's starting to become something he dreads. You know, he's like, I'm tired of, you know, this cycle and this pattern. I was like, you got to make a decision then. And you got to advocate for yourself. You know, you're not married to the money. You don't need to do this to this extent. If you can make a restructuring in your schedule, I think it's really good to do. It's only going to benefit you. And I think he's going to have more happiness having time for himself, you know, free time. He's going to be able to spend time with God more. And then all the things that God is telling him to do, he'll be able to take time for that too. And that's a frustration on him right now, is that he feels like he can't do some of those things. And I've been there. So I think, you know, with the grind, you have control. You do have control. Yes, we have to pay bills. You have to do certain things. And I get that. And I'm never going to be insensitive to that, because I have to do that too, like everybody else. But you also need to make sure that you are being prioritized.
Yeah.
You know, you're being healthy with yourself. So to transition and just to kind of close this a little bit, what can we say to somebody who might be stuck in that pattern, that cycle of the constant grind? What would you guys say about that you've learned from God, that you've experienced, or that you think somebody should hear right now?
I think for me personally, I have never mentally and with my mental health and then also my physical health, I've never declined more than when I was in my constant grind season and it was unhealthy and I didn't rest, because I didn't prioritize my own self. And I prioritized like the feeling of accomplishment and the money that was coming in, and I neglected myself, and I've never been so unhappy. Like I would clock in and I would cry in the bathroom, and then I'd go to work, and then when I was done, I would cry on the way home because I'm like, I hate this. But then my paycheck would come in and I'd be fine. But to that person that's stuck in that cycle, it's not worth it. There's so much freedom and fulfillment and grinding and working hard, but then resting and doing it the right way. Yeah. It's the way that we're supposed to, and that's the way that God made us to function. He didn't make us to nonstop be going, do this and this and this. He made us to almost like take work as a form of worship in a way, to honor God and use what He's given us, but then to rest. And so yeah, it can be a really unhealthy place. So
That's good.
Absolutely.
That's so good.
I really like what Naomi was saying. And something that my mom tells me, which is also like biblical, but like the birds don't know where their nest is going to be next season. They don't know like where their food is going to come from that day, but somehow is birds still living, and they have little birdies, and like they live out that cycle. And so there's beauty in the fact that yes, you should be intentional, and like you should have like your 5-year plan, or at least have an idea, but like God provides your day to day. And I think there's like celebration in the fact that like of the little things that you accomplish. Like there's food on your table right now, like your basics are met. And so I think once people realize like live in that like your basics are met, like you're not out on the street, like you still have another day to get it right. There's I find a lot of rest and celebration in that fact.
Yeah, that's good. I think something I would say is I think when you grind so much from an unhealthy space, you begin to worship it. It becomes your idol. Yeah. So for me, I had to recognize that I had the wrong king on the throne of my heart. You know, the idol that I was worshiping was the money. And then I had baby idols outside of those idols. You know what's coming out of your heart because of what's sitting on the throne of your heart, right? If you're talking about grind, how you doing? Man, work is this, work is that. That's what you know. That would be my answer.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, man. I would say to someone who is stuck in that grind or in that cycle, that life is too precious to go through it worried about the grind and worried about chasing something. It says somewhere else in the Bible, it's like similar to what Carmen was saying. It says, you know, don't worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, what, you know, all of these other things. And the point at which we start battling with laziness or with not wanting to take rest, or all of that is usually because what point did we not pay attention to where our body and our soul needed something else that we've already skipped over. So I would say take the time to make sure that you're okay. Take the time to do what your soul needs and what it requires to be your best. And I promise, I feel very confident that when you do structure your life in that way, the fruit that you will see will be a lot better than the fruit that you would get from being worried about the grind in totality. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Zay, you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I want to double down on what Carmen said, because I love that you have to celebrate the small wins. For me, that takes the pressure off. It's not inherently wrong to want to accomplish things, but I think, kind of to what Rick was saying, when that becomes your idol, that's where the line gets crossed. But yeah, for me, being able to celebrate the small things, if I didn't write and mix and master the song in one day, I started the verse. That's okay. That's enough. It doesn't have to be the full thing. But yeah, celebrate the small ones. For me, that took the pressure off a whole lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think my final thoughts would just be, life is too precious and you have too much purpose.
Yeah.
I think just like what you said, you have too much purpose that you can miss if you're constantly distracted by a grind.
Yeah.
This life that we have here stays here.
Yep.
We go on. And so everything that we're building here stays here. So what are we building while we're here? Are we grinding towards the right things? Is it actually going to last? Or are we just going to be rich here and look cool here and then leave and nothing happens? And so I would just challenge everybody to just think about the impact that you're going to leave and what you're building, and to make sure you take time to do that. And also, don't neglect yourself here.
Yep.
You should have a decent life here. You should be happy here. Yeah. That's one of the things I believe in Ecclesiastes, is kind of what you talked about. But actually, it is to work hard, but also to find enjoyment in your work. Yeah, and then it even talks so simply about just like just enjoying life. That's a good thing to make sure you prioritize as well. So prioritize your mental health in that way as well. But that's what I would say. Your life has too much purpose to just come here and grind and just leave. And I think that we have everything we need already. Like, I think God's given us all the resources, all the dreams, all the goals, all the visions to help each other, to benefit this earth. And I think sometimes we miss that because we don't spend enough time with Him developing those things. We get caught up in developing all the other things in life, our credit and these jobs and all these little things that in the grand scheme don't matter. Yeah. They are helpful in life. Yes, we need all those things. But in the grand scheme, they are idols currently, and they're distracting us from what really matters. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. It's my little bit.
Jay, there's one more thing I wanted to add, really about what you mentioned a couple of times about resting but doing it well. Mm-hmm. And for anyone who's watching that may not know, or they're like, how do I rest well? What does that look like? And I would love to briefly just kind of touch on a couple of what those things look like. The biggest thing that comes to my mind is going to be our relationship with our phone when we're supposed to be resting and really getting off of it. And I feel like these are things that we have to address them. But it's, first of all, we don't miss anything when we're off socials, when we're off the phone. But when you talk about resting well, and the type of rest that's actually going to replenish us and refuel us, requires us to be as intentional with that rest as we've been intentional with working hard. Mm-hmm. And that looks like getting off the socials when we have to, and laying the phone down when we have to, and like you said, silencing everything. And so I really wanted to emphasize that in creating an environment that is conducive to proper rest and good rest, not just filling it with other things, even if those things aren't productive things, even if those things are casual things, but it's filling it with something. But sitting in the grass, going for a walk, like really doing the things, like all of it isn't even spiritual. Some of it is like practical journaling and the things that are just great habits that help us to clear our mind and create that space within us. I just wanted to touch on that briefly for anyone who's wondering how could I go about resting well or starting.
That's a huge point. We couldn't have left without that one.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Creating an atmosphere for rest and a lifestyle for it. That's so powerful. Well, yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. We hope that you got blessed by this in any way, shape, or form. I want you to comment before you leave. Don't leave without commenting.
Don't you do
letting
it.
us don't you do it.
Don't.
No.
Let us know how this impacted you. Let us know what you learned or contribute to the conversation. Teach us about what that looks like for you, what it looks like being in the grind culture, what it looks like in your life. And we want to hear from you. Also, if you want to hear a conversation specifically about rest, comment below and let us know. We love you guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Family, thank you so much for tuning into this Generation One podcast, specifically talking about the grind culture and being in that constant and consistent cycle of grind, build, make it happen that a lot of us subject ourselves to in this world. As a matter of fact, I for sure have subjected myself to it many times. But I want to read you this passage of scripture that has blessed me even recently, that showed me the importance of resting and taking care of myself so that I can bring my best self to every assignment. And this is the scripture. It is really senseless to work so hard from early morning till late at night, toiling to make a living for the fear of not having enough. God can provide for his devoted lovers even while they sleep. I love that last part. Toiling all day to make a living for fear of what we might not have, a fear of not having enough. But it says here, and it closes by saying, God can provide for his devoted lovers even while they sleep. And I want that promise. I want the promise that says, I am loved by God, and I love God, and I'm serious about what he's called me to do. So even when I'm sleeping, God is working on my behalf. God is building on my behalf. I don't have to spend all day and all night just destroying myself trying to hustle up on whatever it is that I'm accomplishing or trying to accomplish. And I want to invite you, as we close this out, to sow into Generation One and what we're doing here for One. It's an amazing opportunity to create a community like this where we can bring these types of conversations to you, and we want to do so much more. But we can't do it without you. We can't do it without your giving. We can't do it without your partnership, and we certainly can't do it without your feedback. So while you're sowing, right here is a QR code that'll take you directly to the push pay for Generation One. But while you're doing that, I want you to be thinking, what do you want to hear? What do you want to hear in 2023 from Generation One? Drop it in the comments. We're going to be reading all the comments and responding. And who knows, we might pick that topic, and we might even bring in people that you want to hear talk about those certain things. So we love you. Without further ado, we will see you next Tuesday on the Generation One podcast. Peace.